Hey party people, this is Jeremy for MVM, and today I'm taking a look at Runaljod, the Sound of the Runes. This is a game for 1 to 4 players, and it's set in that Norse Viking kind of theme. And what you're doing is playing these adventurers who are going to be going on an adventure or through a big epic campaign on the hunt for these big beasts. While you walk around Midgard, you're going to be fighting off clans, you're going to be fighting off wolves and other things, which I have not seen yet because there was only so much detail they gave to us in very small sample in this prototype. It was kind of a sample adventure they gave to us. And what you're doing is you're moving around these boards. You're actually adding boards to kind of continue your path. But the cool part is, other than you're just chucking dice, is this rune system. And you are throwing these runes that are kind of like dice, but they can land sideways and face down and face up, and there's different things that you can do with them that's really interesting on your board, and also at the altar where you can activate gods based on how the runes have fallen. We're going to be taking a look at how that looks, and hopefully I give you a good understanding of how the mechanisms of the game. But it's a very easy game, pretty straightforward. So let me go ahead and get to the boards, show you how it plays, and then you can make an informed backing decision. Let's get to it. Let's get set up for a game of Runaljod. First thing you're going to do is take the Altar of the Gods board. You're also going to take 4 Gods runes randomly and put them on there. You're also going to take the start and finish tokens. They look like a dragon head and a dragon tail. You're going to place the dragon head on one of the circle areas, and then you're also going to count three rings further in clockwise order, and then place the tail. You're going to find the expiration card with an eye on the bottom. This is the initial expiration card. I'm assuming that it's going to be the one that you start with every game to kind of begin the hunt. And you're going to put that one on the board, on the altar. And then you're going to make a deck of 2 more basic cards. And then finally that card with the Titan on it, I believe is called a map card. And then you're going to put those in a little deck right next to the side there, face down. Of course, make sure that boss is at the bottom. Don't want it to pop up too early when you're not ready yet. Then you're going to start constructing the board that's on the card. And meanwhile, while we're talking about it, exploration cards have the setup for all different player accounts. So they tell you what enemies are on there. They also tell you the conditions that are on there and when they trigger. And we'll talk about that again. But you really want to pay attention to the conditions that are going on there before you start. And that's pretty much for any card. So anyway, you're going to lay the board out that's on that card, and you're going to start placing the enemies on there. And then you're going to pick your characters. But the last couple things that you need to have set up here, make sure you have the terrain, the pieces, the search tokens that go on there, the fire that may go on there, and this is just from the scenario I had. And then you want to lay out the equipment deck, the search deck, and the event deck. And also the AI deck and the cards for the enemy, so you know what kind of attacks they have and the dice pools they have. But you need the AI cards as well. Now you're going to pick out your characters. So let me go through a quick player setup so you know what's going on their boards and what they add before you put them on the board. All right, let's do it. For the player setup, you're going to start with a board. That character board, you want to pay attention to the color because it's going to tell you what items you can carry, and it's also going to tell you what your skill deck is. This is very important, and you can actually check it by looking at the runes on here to figure out if that's yours as well. Speaking of runes, you're going to find the 4 runes that match this display right here in the top right. They're going to look like little stones like this with the same etchings in them. You're also going to find your starting items, which are in the book, and you're going to place them wherever they go. They're weapons and shields, things like that. Other than that, you are going to spend 2 glory points to get 2 skills to start out with. That can be a number 2 skill or a 1-in-1 skill. And that's basically the setup for a character. You want to keep some red and blue tokens by for damage and points in here as well. But looking around the board, you're going to have the equipment that you can put on your body and how many slots are there. You're going to have your basic actions, the attack, the movement, and the interact, along with your initial defense, which is 2. And down here is your health, your two asymmetric abilities, one for when you're healthier and one for when you're kind of on your heels a little bit there, your glory points right here and where you can add skills, and then finally where you'll put your runes here at the bottom. Now go ahead and lay this out. Make sure you have all the decks nearby, all the enemies nearby, and now you're ready to play a game. Okay, party people, now we're talking about gameplay. Now, basically, it's the hero's turn and then the enemy's turn. And parts of this are simultaneous and then other parts are taking one action at a time. They're pretty fairly obvious, right? So the hero's turn is 4 phases. You're going to have the preparation phase where every player, they have skills that they have used and they were turned sideways, you turn them face up. And then you also have the gift points that if you have them to spend, they'd be on the lower right area of your board, and you have markers there. That's from killing enemies and saving up enough points to do so. You would buy one of those using the point numbers that are on the top right of the corner of the card, and then you would add them to your area. The next up is the Destinies phase. And in the Destinies phase, you're going to chuck these beautiful runes here. You're going to chuck them in your hands like this with 2 hands, and then you'll drop them, and whatever result you get, you will take those and put them over here. Now, there may be runes that you had from their last turn. You're not going to chuck those, so maybe I should put these over here and then just say those were there and I used these last time. I can use that, boom, like that, and then those results are those results, and that kind of thing like that. It's also an opportunity for a person who was knocked down to recover themselves. What they would do is take all their runes, shake them like this, and then they would drop them again, and they would take those results, and whatever ones were face up, they would get 2 health points for that, and if they were sideways, they would be worth 3 points. Now, I want to make sure I kind of explain this because moving forward, it's kind of a thing. Face up means those runes can be used for pretty much anything because they have the rune faces on them, and there are cards that have specific rune faces that you have to pay attention to. And then there's ones face down, which you can use for any basic action that does not require that. Everything in the game kind of tells you these need to have a specific face, or sideways, because sideways counts as a face-up face. But it also gives you special benefits, just like we saw there with the health. It gives you an extra health. That will work as far as activating runes, which we'll talk about later. Okay, so now we are done with the Destinies phase. We roll our die, and now we're going to move on to the status phase. Now, the status phase is where you have to deal with things that happened to you in previous rounds from attacks and adverse events. So first up is cuts. When you have a cut, you're going to receive 2 health, 2 damage, and the health goes over here on the bottom of the board. This is something to pay attention to throughout the game because it will alter the abilities that you have, one being for your stronger side and then the one for the weaker side. When you get to a certain point, you can't use the other ability, but you need to use those strategically, so make sure you remember that. The second one is going to be stunned. Now, when you're stunned, you actually have to take 2 of your runes and put them on your interact space. This interact space is over here. This is one of the places you can put your runes, and if you notice, there are no icons there that say, hey, you have to put a face-up rune there. Also, you have the ice, so you're frozen. And when you're frozen, you receive 1, you lose 1 health. And that is the status phase. Now, pretty much all that stuff can be done simultaneously. Now we're going to get to the actual actions phase where each action is taken 1 at a time. Now, here's the kicker. You do not have to use all your runes. You do not have to take all your actions. You can pass, and we'll get to what that happens in that. But we're going to get into the meat and the bones of the game, which is the action phase. One of the first choices you can make is to move. So you can take one of these runes here and you can put it in one of the areas over here on the top left. Over here, you'll notice all the basic actions do not have a face up or face down requirement. So it's important to know that. You can use these kind of however you want. So you'll place this over here. You'll have 2 spots that you can use for movement. You can choose which one and you will move that certain amount of spaces. You can move diagonal. You can move through your fellow heroes, but you cannot, no matter what, move through enemies or be in the same spot as anyone else. So diagonal, left, right, up, down, does not matter. You have 2 spots in there. Another action you can do is interact. So when you interact, you're going to put a rune in this interact space. Doesn't matter which way it is. And when you do this, you can exchange with another person if you're next to them. You can search a search token if it's next to you, and you take a card from the deck, search deck, and those cards have all kinds of stuff. Like they have health. You can draw an equipment deck. You can you may get nothing. You may get health. That kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different little benefits in there. So you want to definitely seek those out. But this is also how you're going to explore in the game. So the explore action is when you're adjacent, like you're at the edge of the board, and there's little pathways that are kind of open at the end of the board. You will move forward into the next board, in a sense. And what you'll do is you can only do this if you've killed every enemy on there, and also that the current exploration card is gone and you're down to like drawn events. You will take the next exploration card, flip it over and put it in the altar, and then you will look at it and lay out the next board and kind of put just kind of like an initial setup. You're going to be setting up a new board with new tokens, new enemies, all that stuff. You're also going to get rid of the boards behind it. because you're about to transfer over to it, and that's basically it. But the last thing and the most important thing is you get to move that time marker back to the last snake spot. So it's like 3 spaces backwards. And that is the interact action. To activate an ability, all you have to do is pay the specific rune costs for that card. So you take exactly what this rune is, and you're going to put it on that rune and activate it. Now, there are a couple different little conditions to this, and everybody's is different. There are some that are heavy on attacks, there's some on health recovery, there's some for response. There's all kinds of types. Like I said, these are highly asymmetrical characters, but you may have to also spend some additional things. And one of them is called Destiny. What you do is take one of the runes that you do have available in your Destiny area, and you have to flip it face down. It's like kind of like you're sacrificing something. But you notice I didn't take it and move it away. You actually just turn it face down, and now it can still be used. So it's not a big deal. But you still have to pay the rune that's needed to take an action, and then you will take that action. There's even a character that has a thing called Trance. She has to do some other actions to get these Trance tokens, but then she can use her ability. So it's really important to pay attention to that as you start to add these on. How much are these doing these abilities going to cost you? But remember, they refresh every round after you use them. To raise a fellow hero requires you to pass a test. There are physical tests and there are like spiritual tests, and that's on your board, and it requires face up runes. So this is very important before you take this action, and it's going to tell you what you're going to use. You're going to actually be using the white die for this. You will be rolling that many that are required. So you'll place your rune here. I'm going to do that on my board, but you'll probably have a picture down there to show you. And then you'll chuck for her. She has 3 white dice. You will roll those die, and you can pass or fail. What you're looking for is the improvement icon on there. So whatever you do, you pass that one. If you pass the test, that player, the other player, would chuck all their runes, and it would kind of be assessed exactly the same. You would have face-up runes give you 2 health, face-up, the sideways ones give you 3 health, and a bonus benefit is if you rolled multiple improvements, you get to receive health as well, 1 per. So a really kind of interesting way to help out your fellow buddies, but time moves forward one space. So you're losing a little bit of time, but you're helping people out. To take the attack action, players will take one of their runes, face up, face down, put it over here, sideways, you put it over here, and you can attack using your dice pool from your cards. But there's also, on a future turn, let's say you want to attack again, it will take 1 die out of your dice pool. Now your dice pool comes from the weapons that you have equipped. You'll take the die that are right here, they're either white, black, or red, and those all have different combinations of different icons. But generally, the double axe head is the 3 hits. The smaller axe is 2 hits, and then the knife is 1, or knife or sword is 1. And you're going to get whatever results those are. And if you roll another improvement symbol, it's got like a nice little swirl on it, you get to add the bonuses that are in the boxes above. And that's what you want to pay attention to when you look at weapons and kind of know what your accessories are. You're always going to look in that little box here to tell you what goes on. Now, the players and enemies will have a chance to respond with their defense. Some players will have actual equipment that they can turn sideways and use that to defend, and then all players will have, and enemies will have, defense icons over here on the left side. On the enemy's cards they have them, on the AI cards they have them, and then on your board they're on the left side. You would subtract that from the total amount of hits that the person has gained from their dice pool, and that will be your damage. Now if you're a hero and you're fighting an enemy, you will place place the damage tokens on the character, or you put them like on the board or on their card, just depends. And if they die, you are going to take one of the blue tokens and put them over here by the glory points. If you ever get to 5 glory points, you'll take all those off, and then you'll put a little pip right here over on the gift side. And this is how you will buy the skills in the next round. So you want to accumulate as many kills as possible so that you can get some of these over here, and that's how you get more skills. Now this is the most unique part of the game, and this is how you use the rune system to the best of its ability, and that's how you activate runes on the altar and how you manipulate them and things like that. So let's talk about that. To activate a rune, that's one action. You're going to put the interacting, you notice how I used a sideways one there? So you're going to take a sideways rune, and then you're going to activate one of the runes that are face up or sideways on there, and you'll take that action. Now, runes are really interesting. They're going to, of course, give you like attacks. They're going to give you, kind of decks. You can look through decks. You can add a die to your die pool. All kinds of stuff that gives you kind of a really good advantage to what's going on. Now, the cool part is once you're done doing an action there, you shake the runes again, and if you get some sideways ones, we all get 1 health. So that's 1 health per. So those are really good benefits to activating those the altar. There's also another action that you can do where you can actually take a rune. You can buy a rune, but it's going to require 2 of your runes that are sideways. Now, what you do with that is you take the rune and you put it in your interact space, and you can use it as your own rune moving forward. Now, you can keep using it as your own rune. It will act as a face down rune, but then you can also at any point use it for its power, its ability. When you do that, it goes back to the altar. And also at any point, if you were to happen to roll, you have to throw again, and you got these, the two sideways, it automatically goes back. So it's kind of a cool way to get some extra actions out of there, but I love that combination of that. And remember, when anything goes back into the altar of the gods, because there will only be 4, never be more. You shake it, never before, never be more. That's kind of cool. Shake it, and then you toss it down. And then if you have any sideways runes, those go. You get a benefit as well. That's pretty much the altar of the gods. The last part of your turn is really whether you want to end your turn or not. Now, the last part of a turn is when the heroes decide that they do not want to go anymore. Each hero can decide when they want to pass. They don't have to use all their runes on their turn. And then when that hero decides, hey, I'm good. I got 1 left over here. I've used all my stuff. I think I want to keep this because I may want to use it for the next round. Maybe it's even face down. You say I'm passing, and then you take your runes, whatever rune is left over in that area, and make sure it's face up. So that's something you can plan and prepare for next round. Once every player does that, you are going to move over to the enemy turn. The enemy's turn is really simple, and it starts with the time phase. You're going to move this head one space clockwise, and then if you ever get to these little areas here, these circle areas, you are going to look at your card and you're going to make sure that it doesn't have the symbol. If it has the symbol, you're going to remove the card. But you also have to make sure you're paying attention to the effects, because those will trigger as well. And trust me, they aren't good, okay? Extra damage, healing, all kinds of stuff like that are on there, but that will move off the board. Now you will not have a card here for expiration anymore. You won't have any card right here, but you'll still maybe have enemies on it. That's fine. But now events will happen. So this is called the event phase. You're going to draw from this deck with this face right here, and you're going to pull one of those cards. Now, some of these cards have just one thing on them, or they may have this or that on them. You get to choose which one those are, but then there's also ones that have multiple effects, like over a couple rounds. Like this one right here, you can get frozen up to 3 times if you fail a test. So if players fail a test, they can get frozen, and that's up to 3 times. You will mark that. Other ones right here, let's see this one right here. The enemy with more damage heals 4 health, or put 2 type A enemies in the exit of the active tile. So these are going to be bad, and these will continue until you move forward to the next card and explore. And when that will be when another card comes out and is added to the board. You would make a new board, put new enemies on it. The next part is actually the enemy's activation phase. Now, these cards all have a lot of different labels on them. They tell you what they're going to do. They tell you their dice pool, the abilities they have, the defense, their health, their movement, and even when they get improvements, what will happen. What you're looking for from the AI is this AI cards, and these AI cards are really well labeled out. They tell you exactly which one you're activating, and you're really looking from the top of the card down to the bottom. So whatever ones are not there, you're just going to skip them and keep going down. Now, let's say you have multiple archers, and that was the first one that activated here. Then you're going to activate all the archers. The order doesn't matter. It's just really like the archers have to go. You're going to be looking for things like line of sight. They're going to have the order of who they're looking for, and if you can't find the line of sight or there's something tricky, it's just the closest person to them. There'll also sometimes be bonuses on here, but they will say them clearly under the card. You do the standard attack, and that is exactly what an enemy's turn is like until they finish. They do everything they need to do, and they finish, and that's the enemy's turn. That is how a round works. Players will keep doing this until they fulfill the mission. Hopefully they make it before the head hits the tail and they lose, or they win if they fulfill whatever requirement is. And for mine, it was to beat the big bad dude, the Jotun guy here. And when you beat him, that's the end of the board. But there may be other things. There may be a campaign thing that goes on. This was just the one that I had. That is an overview of Runaljod. Hopefully I gave you an informed idea of how it works. Let's get to my final thoughts. All right, party people, final thoughts here. To be upfront, when I first saw the game and I laid it all out, I was like, what's so interesting about these runes? They're very interesting. They're very interesting simply because there's so much that you can do with these runes and so many possibilities and how they affect your character when you're chucking these runes, and you're hoping they fall sideways, because there's so much you can do with those sideways runes. You have so much kind of wiggle room of like, am I going to activate the altar board, or am I going to activate things on my board? But I just like the fact that like there's always something to do with these things, face up or face down. But that gives you a lot of choices. So it's each player has their own kind of like little puzzle to figure out, like when and what time do I use this one and versus that one, or do I save them for next time when they get flip face up? That's kind of a choice you have. I also just like that this game you can kind of build your adventure how you want. Now I haven't played the campaign. I didn't see anything from it, but I just like the fact that they gave us like about 5 or 6 cards that you can use to go through the kind of make your own adventure deck and make it longer. And I just like the idea of having that, because it lets me know I can set some stuff up and get it done and play after like for a game night. And I have other games like that I really enjoy, where it's just like we play 1, 2, 3 cards or scenarios, and then we play a 4th, and then we're done. And that's what this game is going to do. And if you like this theme, it's definitely going to hit home on that, because I can see that. It definitely comes through because everything is dripping with this Norse theme. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all you need to know about this game, because it's pretty straightforward, but that rune system is what sets it apart. So hopefully I helped you make an informed backing decision today, because I can't tell you what to do with your money. I want to thank Tempo Games for sponsoring this video, and I want to thank you, party people, for your time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and once again, thank you for your time, party people. You have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me on MVM.